Thank you, guys, and glad you're here. Come on in, guys, and sit down. It's Lonnie Galloway is coaching our receivers back in the back, so any of you want to grab Lonnie, or if you got some great players that are dying to come to Chapel Hill, that they're all really, really smart and big and fast and knock people out, just let us know, and we'll be more than happy to help you with that. I'm excited to be here. I'm more excited to be back in coaching. You know, I stayed in coaching 42 years. And then one day you step out and you say, you're going to work really, really hard when you're young, and you're going to play when you get a little older. And then I'm starting to fish every day. And I fished so much and caught so many fish that I was hoping they got off, because it's so boring by the time I got them in, because when you fish every day, it's not as much fun. And then I'm playing golf every day, and I always thought that the reason I couldn't play golf was because I was coaching every day. And if I'd play golf every day, I'd get good at it. And I still sucked. Every day. So I couldn't even blame coaching or stress or anything anymore. And then I go to TV. And I was talking to Craig about TV. And TV, it was fun for me because I could go to the stadiums and do the games and call the games. And I felt like all of you, I could be on the sideline again and talk about what was going to happen. And ESPN on studio, you go in at noon and you see 24 games. And you have to email the producer what you see so you can talk about it during the day. So you go in at noon and you leave at 10:30 at night. And they don't tell you anything. They don't tell you what to say. They just want you to have a very strong statement. They want you to say who's going to win and why. And that's it. And they want you to do it in 12 seconds. Because it's a 12-second soundbite. And you got somebody in your ear all the time saying, get out, get out. And the first time I was with John Saunders 5 years ago, they said, get out, get out. I said, I just got in. And they said, hey, you idiot, don't be talking to me. You're on TV. So it's not very hard, but what happens is you don't win. They kept saying after games that Dabo lost to Syracuse and he's going to get home at 5 in the morning and have to go somewhere else. And they'd always say, Coach, aren't you glad you're not doing that anymore? You never lose here. You don't lose with TV. And I said, yeah, but you never win. And that's what you guys don't understand. That winning is a lot more powerful than a loss. And that's just part of it. So they called last year and they said they wanted us to be in the National Football Hall of Fame. And that's really cool. My granddad was a high school football coach, and he had always dreamed about his grandson being in the Hall of Fame. So I know my thing. So I asked them, they said, you're going to be inducted a year from now. And I said, why? Why do you wait a year? And they said, you need to go tell all the guys that coached with you and played for you thanks, because they're the reason you're in. That made a lot of sense to me. So we go to App State, we go to Tulane, we go to North Carolina, and we go back to Texas. And what we found, and some of you older guys in here, more experienced guys in here will understand this, some of you young ones won't yet, but I think it's really, really important. What we found is that when we got back around the Tulane guys, the Appalachian State guys, and the guys from North Carolina, and they're in their 40s and have children, they were saying, Coach, remember when you said that to me? That changed my life. You remember when you disciplined me, Coach, and you did this? It changed everything I do. Coach, when I'm talking to my kids, I say this because you told me that, and it mattered to me. And it really made a difference in my life. And then they're telling me things that I told them 27 years ago, like it was yesterday. And what Sally and I realized is coaching matters. Coaches coach. And the young ones aren't ready to tell you that yet because they haven't gotten to the phase of their life that you've helped them prepare for with their children and their jobs and the things that they have. So when we walked out of that North Carolina meeting in August, we had always thought about coaching again because Dick Vermeil told me, don't ever say you won't coach again because you don't know that you won't. And he did 17 years later. And what I could tell is I was getting a little bored with TV because it was fun, it was easy, but there was no purpose. There was no goal for the day. And then I caught myself watching The View and Jerry Springer in the spring, and my wife said, okay, that's enough. You're sitting here watching morning TV. We got to get you back in coaching. We got to get you somewhere else. So when we realized that was the void, That was the void that we didn't even call it retirement. We called it rewiring because I was working really hard, but it wasn't coaching. And coaches coach. So when Bubba Cunningham called, and I love Larry Fedora, and he did a great job at North Carolina, but when Bubba called and said, will you come and coach our team? Because I said, I'm not going to go interview, and I'm not going to be one of five, and I'm not going to do all that again. If somebody wants me, they got to call me. Well, what are the odds of that happening? When Bubba called, I called my wife in Austin and said, Sally, Bubba Cunningham wants us to coach the team in Chapel Hill. And she said, good for him. Let's do it. And that was it. That was the only conversation. And I've had 8 months of just absolute fun. We have had a blast. And it's just getting started. Now, the other thing, and we'll get into some of this other stuff, but I think this is really important because some of you are probably in this position. We won enough games at Texas that if you're not careful, your identity becomes about winning only. I see Dabo's in that, Nick's in that, at their schools because you can't lose any. Urban Meyer's in that. They kept saying on TV, what a bad year Urban's having. He lost one game. Yeah, but he lost to Purdue. He lost one game. Come on, folks. It's hard to win. Yeah, but Urban can't get over the top. He just won the national championship. He's won 3. They said after Michigan lost the first game, Jonathan Vilma sitting next to me, great player, smart guy. He said, John Harbaugh should be fired. Or Jim Harbaugh should be fired. And I said, why should he be fired? He said, he can't win. I said, what if he goes 13-1? He said, then they should keep him. But he can't win. He can't even beat Notre Dame. He can't beat Ohio State. I said, nobody else is either. So who are you going to hire better than Jim Harbaugh? I said, if Coach Schembechler's alive, he hires Jim Harbaugh. He's at Michigan. He's doing a great job. He's winning 10-plus games. Yeah, they brought him in to win it all. If you can't win it all, we shouldn't have you. So I asked Coach Darrell Royal, who won 3 national championships at Texas. I asked him one time, why did you quit? He quit at 52 years old. And everybody in here has thought about quitting on one night, because I know that, because there's been some bad nights in this business. And we worry about the media. We worry about the fans. We worry about things that aren't important. We worry about parents, because I don't know if you all realize this or not. The mothers like their kids more than the other kids. I realized that when I was coaching at some point. But here's what Coach Royal told me. He said, to me, Coach, we won so many games that when I realized that after a win I was relieved and after a loss I was devastated, I had no joy in my life. And he says, you can't do this unless you're having fun. And in 08 and 09, we were 25-2. And we lost to Tech with 3 seconds left when we were number 1 in the country out in Lubbock. And it probably cost us another chance to play for a national championship. So all I remember of that great team that beat Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl is losing to Tech with 3 seconds left. And we kicked the ball in the middle of the field at the end. They ran back to the 37. We dropped an interception. I mean, I can go back and tell you every play of that game because it's devastating. And then the next year, we lose to Alabama in the national championship, and Colt McCoy gets hurt on the 5th play. We ran an option to the left, and he gets knocked out of the game with a pinched nerve. We got a freshman in there. And I still, to this day, thought we should have had the freshman prepared better because injuries happen. But what I didn't even think that team for 25-2 because I was so devastated that you get to the national championship again and you don't win it. And it's too hard to get there. And Coach Paterno and Coach Bowden told me you'll be screwed when you win the national championship because after you win one, you're going to want a bunch more, and they're really hard to get. And that's true. That's true. So what I'm promising you I'm going to try to do, I used to get so mad when we'd have an ugly win because we beat Colorado one day 38-14, and I was mad at everybody. I was mad because I knew we couldn't win the national championship with that performance. I was mad because that wasn't going to beat Oklahoma. And what I should have been happy is because we won. So before we get into this too much, be happy with ugly wins. Because you can coach them hard after ugly wins. You can coach them hard, and you get better than that. And the other thing I realized that you're not going to be a great team every Friday night. They're going to play up and down. Sitting there for 5 years watching it, if your team plays hard every week, you've done a good job. Because a lot of teams don't play hard. And we all sit here, and this is what we do for a living. How could a team possibly not play hard? And a lot of them don't. That's our responsibility. Because you've got to create an edge for every practice, and you've got to create an edge for every game. So when you walk into that stadium and you say, our team's flat. No, you're flat. It's you. It's your responsibility to get your assistant coaches and your guys ready to play. That's what we do. That's our job. And it just doesn't happen. You have to work at it, and you have to do it. We're going to get started with this. And I didn't want to preach there, but that's been on my mind for 5 years, and I think it's something I need to share with coaches. Because when you quit, make sure you're ready. Make sure you're ready, because you can't fill the void that you've got after you get out of coaching. And that's with your coaches, with your planning, with your games, with a comeback, with a big game. Trying to get them ready to play. Guys coming to see you, helping them get jobs when they get after you. You can't fill that void. So if you're thinking about getting out, come see me. Come see me. It's not as much fun as you think. Again, the office. We're in the education business during the week, and on the weekends, we're in show business. And that's what we do. If we gripe because fans leave early, they're not coming to support you. They're coming to feel good about themselves. They identify with your team when it's good, and I have great friends at Texas that were billionaires that would say, when we won, they would say, gosh, we played great. I love this team. And when we lost, they would say, God, I can't believe y'all lost. That's who they are. And we get mad at them. Billionaire, smart man. We beat Baylor once 42-14. He comes on the field walking off with me, and he said, boy, what an awful game. That's so boring. It's so boring. I said, so if we get beat, you're pissed. If we don't look pretty for you, we're pissed. He said, well, you had them 42-0 at halftime. You didn't even score the second half. I said, I played guys, you don't even know their name. I was trying to help our team. He said, it just wasn't as much fun. It just wasn't as much fun. That's what we live with. And that's it. I always wondered why fans yell when we're doing great and we don't need them. They're either walking out or mad at us when we're not doing well, when we need them. So they don't get it, and you can't make them get it. So don't worry about fans. They are who they are. But we are in the show business. So you got to constantly sell your program and try to make it the cool place to be. I love famous men with quotes. I put one on Twitter every morning because I used to do it for my children. And they said, why don't you do it for your team? Then I went to Iraq, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And when I got back, all the soldiers were reading them. And then, so I put it every morning because it helps me to get up and think of something positive to get me going. So when you look at it, you got Dwight Eisenhower that played football. Leadership's the ability to get a person to do what you want him to do, when you want it done, in a way that basically he thinks he did it. And that's true. And then you start talking about the ultimate measure of a man's not where he stands in moments of comfort or convenience, but where he stands with challenge and controversy. Dr. King, that's who we are. We have to take crisis and turn them into positives. Because when you're dealing with people's children, and especially the ages you're dealing with, you're going to have a crisis every day. So if you cave every time you have a crisis, you can't coach. You'll burn out. You got to take that crisis, try to avoid it, but you got to take it, and then you've got to handle it and make it a positive and turn it into a positive. Leadership is poised under pressure, John F. Kennedy, no question. We have pressure because we're dealing with the most precious thing in parents' lives every day. That's what we are. And we can't expect that mother not to love her son because we love ours. And we can't expect that father or that mother to see how good or bad that player is because they love them so much more and they want them happy. They can't tell whether he's good or not. And we shouldn't expect that. So what I've done is I've said, Mom and Dad, I'll talk to you about your son. I'll talk to you about his grades. I'll talk to you about his attitude. I'll talk to you about everything but football. Because I know more football than you do. And then what I've done, if a parent says, I'm going to come talk to you about my son not playing, what I've done is I've kept plays from practice. And I've kept plays where he loafed and where he was bad. And I bring the son and the parents in, and I sit them down and I show them the video. I said, you just tell me what you think. It happened 5 times at Texas. They chewed the kid out and left because he wasn't trying hard. So keep them posted. Let them know. And then I was with Joe Namath at a golf tournament. Joe Namath played in one of the first Super Bowls between the two teams with the Baltimore Colts, and they were a 21-point underdog, and Joe Namath said, we're going to win by 21. Everybody thought he was crazy. So I asked Joe Namath at this golf tournament, what is the most pressure you've ever felt at a sporting event? I thought it'd be that game. He said, Coach, it was yesterday. I was teeing off at the Colonial Golf Tournament, and there were 10,000 people on both sides. And as I stood there, I knew I was going to hit somebody. I didn't know which side it was on. I didn't know who I was going to hit, but I knew I was going to hit somebody. And he said, and I did, Coach. I scattered them all. And I said, why was that pressure? And he said, because I didn't know what I was doing. In football, I'm so prepared, I know what I'm doing. In golf, I hadn't swung that club enough to know where that ball was going to go. And it makes sense to us. You do what you do. If you're prepared for those games, then the games are fun because you've worked harder in practice to prepare than you're going to have to be in that game. And that's really important. So we go through and we build our family atmosphere and our program really on these four things: communication, trust, respect, and common purpose. And I'll tell you very quickly about why. First, you go to communication. If you can't learn to talk to each other, and young men and men in general don't do a good job of communicating, and a lot of times we'll talk about the sporting event, we'll talk about some joke, but when we get serious with each other, it's hard for us to break it down and be direct because we're not direct. I asked my daughters every morning when they were growing up, what are you doing today, girls? And it'd take them an hour and a half. Well, I'm doing my nails, and I'm doing my hair, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do that. I asked the boys, how's your morning? Fine. What are you doing today at school? Nothing. What you got going on tonight? Nothing. Well, how was practice? It's all right. So that's what we do. So you got to learn to communicate, and to do that, you got to get people to talk to you. You got to get your assistant coach to tell you what he's thinking. You know what you're thinking. You got to get your players to tell you what they're thinking. We redid the players' lounge. I brought all the players in and said, what do you want? Tell me what you want. I don't know what you want in the players' lounge. Give me your video games. Give me what games you want to play. Tell me what you want. That's something we can give them. That's something we can give them. We're redoing the locker room. Tell me what you want in your locker. Oh, I need a little electric cord for my iPad. Ask them. Ask them. Don't let them have input with football. Let them have some input everywhere else. And then when you start learning to communicate, my granddad told me a few things that are really important. He said people are going to learn what they think of you, 60% of what they think of you in the first 60 seconds that they meet you. I said, that's really important. That means when you're talking to a player, it means when you're interviewing for a job, that means when you're talking to a booster, in the first 60 seconds I meet this guy, he's going to determine 60% of what he thinks about me. That's pretty powerful. So I said, so what do I do? He said, dress nice. You may not have expensive clothes, but you can be clean. He said, make sure that you look him in the eye when you're talking to him, because it's so rude when you're standing there. What's your name? Tom. I'm standing here talking to Tom, and I'm looking for my next conversation. It's so rude. So if I'm talking to Tom, give Tom the courtesy that I'm talking to Tom, period. And then go to the next one. But don't leave one too early, because it's just rude. It's rude. The other thing my granddad taught me is everybody loves their name. It's something that's really unique to us and our families. So learn people's names. Know their names. When I meet Tom, I say Tom in my mind because I want to be respectful and know Tom's name later on. And then during the conversation, people say, I remember names well. Well, I'm going to mention Tom's name while I'm talking to him. Well, Tom, tell me about this. And Tom, tell me about that. And I'm going to ask Tom about his life. And then when Tom gets ready to leave, I'm going to say, thank you, Tom. And the next time I see Tom, the next day I'm going to know Tom. That's just part of it. It's important to people that you know their names. I've met the last 4 presidents before President Trump. I haven't met President Trump. All 4 of them knew names. They looked directly at you, and they never wavered from your conversation. They were so respectful. President Obama came and spent an hour and a half with our team. Asked every one of them, what's your name, what do you study, where you're from, and what you're planning on doing when you get out. And they also had some research so they knew Colt McCoy had won more games than anybody else in college football. So when President Obama comes up to Colt McCoy, he said, hey, Colt, congratulations on those 45 wins, man. I'm thinking, where did he get that? He knew it. Quan Cosby was standing next to him. He said, Quan, that catch you made at Ohio State to win the game with 16 seconds left. They had information that was important to those guys. That was it. Somebody gave him 2 little facts, one about each one. Then when we go to the White House, President Bush was the same way. But when we went after the national championship game, he spent an hour and a half. Did the same thing. But that's why they're so good at what they do. And that is so important. And the last part of communication is a lot of times when we're, like if I'm going to get on Lonnie, I'm going to go to Lonnie's office because he's going to feel real pressure in my office. So I walk down to his office and I close the door. And then the hardest thing to do is tell one of our friends or somebody you respect that they're doing something that you don't like that needs to change. You don't have to scream. You don't have to yell. But I talked to Terry Donahue after he quit coaching at UCLA, and I said, if you had to do over, what would you do different in your 20 years? You had such a great career. He said, I fired 4 guys, and all 4 of them asked me why I was firing them. And he said, I felt so bad I wasn't direct enough about what I wanted. So when I go to Lonnie, I say, Lonnie, I really like these 4 things that you're doing, but I'm concerned about these 2, and I want them fixed, and here's how I want them fixed, and here's when I want it done. Because if you don't tell him what you want, and if you don't tell him when it's going to be done, then he may wait 2 weeks. I have no patience. I need this before 5 o'clock tomorrow. So let's be direct. Be direct with each other and make sure. When Red McCombs took over the Minnesota Vikings, he's the owner. He's a big car dealer and billionaire out of San Antonio. He walked into a room like this, and all their administrators were sitting there and their staff. And the first thing Red said was, hey, folks, we're going to sell out every preseason football game for the Vikings. I'm so excited about this. We're going to sell out every preseason game. General manager said, Red, you can't sell out preseason games in the NFL. Red said, you're fired. You need to get up and leave. He said, no, Red, you don't understand. He said, no, you don't understand. You're fired. Get out of here now, and I want you out of your office by 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So then Red says, now, let's start over. We're going to sell out every preseason game for the Minnesota Vikings this year. And he said, everybody in that room said, oh, yes, sir, we're going to get it done. Oh, yeah, we can do that, Red, without question. Be direct. Be direct. That's important. Trust. My granddad, Jim Wacker, who's a great coach at TCU, Minnesota, and won a national championship at Texas State, always told me the only rule in your life that's really important is always do what you know is the right thing to do. Even if it's not popular. If it's the right thing to do, you do it, and you'll never have to go back and question yourself. You'll never have to lie. You'll never have to cover anything up. So what I try to tell everybody exactly what I think is the truth and move from there. And I think it works. If you're going to hurt somebody's feelings, hurt the feelings up front with the truth instead of you're going to hurt their feelings at some point anyway because they're going to find out the truth later. Tell the truth. Always do what you know is the right thing to do, and that really helps. The other thing is that we always felt like we needed to have respect. Because if you can learn to talk and you can get people to trust you and you respect yourself and you respect the people in this room like I do, it makes it easy. And then you got to respect the janitor. And then you got to respect your little third-team player that's not going to play very much, but he's out there with his guts. And then you've got to respect your a guy that never played for you, that's out in the business world now. Give respect to people. Give respect. And then when you earn it and they earn it, it works. It works. Football is not complicated. We all come here to find the 15 best plays we can run. The complicated thing is the people. Football's simple. It's simple. I've been doing it 42 years. Not much has changed. You know, we may spread them out a little bit more, but you can still only run man or zone. You can still only play with 11. They hadn't changed that. Let you hold a little bit more, and they let you get guys downfield to throw passes off running plays. But it hadn't changed that much. It doesn't change. If you can still stop the run, you can still run the ball. If you can knock some balls loose and hold on to it yourself, you're going to win most games. It's so simple. And we spend all of our time with these complicated plays that we have guys run together and they fumble because we got too many plays. So the other thing I'd do if I was you, I'd go home and cut out half of my offense and half my defense right now. And you'll be better. You'll win more games. And especially for the first game. That is so important because we have way too much in. And the other thing we tell our coaches, and I think this is very important, always treat people like you want to be treated, which is simple but true. And the other thing is, I tell our coaches, you treat our players like you would want your son to be treated. I can't stand the cussing and the grabbing and the demeaning. A young guy's not doing something right, and we're going to demean him and beat him down. I don't want people cussing me. Coaches are the most sensitive people in the world, and I hear one of our assistant coaches saying, hey, that kid can't handle the heat, coach. He can't handle somebody getting on him, and then I get on the coach and he pouts. See? That's it. That's it. We don't have to treat people bad. You don't have to scream to be strong. You don't have to cuss. I'd go to all these practices in my 5 years at TV. I'd see him running, grabbing a kid. I'd beat the hell out of him now. Nobody going to grab me. Not but once. And one of us is going to jail, and one of us may be dead. But I'm going to tell you now, don't grab me. And don't grab my son, and don't grab our players. Don't use the Lord's name in vain. And people say, well, he's out of touch. He's getting older. No, I'm not. That hasn't changed. I hear these young guys using the F word and MF in front of women. I said, hey, one young coach asked me after practice, what'd you think? I said, you're going to get fired. He said, what do you mean, coach? We're doing well. We're 5-0. And I said, no. You just got a sexual harassment suit back there if she wants it. If she's got her phone on, bud, you're out of here. You're fired. And wait till you make her mad, because she'll keep it. And wait till you lose a couple of games and everybody will be on you. You better change your language. You better. So I just think that's so important. Let's treat people right. That's not hard. Common purpose. One of the best weeks of my life, I went to Iraq. And I was with our military. And what I saw was, I went to the hospital at Ramstead first. And I saw guys without arms, without legs, that were blind. How many in here have been in the military? Yeah, it's I'm telling you now, people don't get it. It's the best day of my life, best week of my life to go over there and see. We're at Balad, and we've got 45 pounds of armor on with a helmet, and we're walking across the lot, and I used to say Lubbock, Texas is really ugly. Balad made Lubbock look pretty. I mean, it was awful. It was 117 degrees. And we're walking across, and they said, now, if you hear a siren go off, you need to hit the ground face down. I said, what's that about? And they said, well, that'll be an incoming missile. And if the missile hits the ground, you can't outrun the shrapnel. You'll be dead. And Rick Neuhauser was with us from UCLA, and he said, so what if it hits you like right on the spot where you fall down? He said, we'll give you a great military burial because you're going to be dead. And then some other coach said, why have you got all this on? I said, man, you're on the front lines. You could hear machine gun fire. You could hear bombs going off. This is real stuff. And the average age was 19 years old, and the average salary was $24,000. And they are working their butt off. And they're so happy happy and they've got great morale and they're upbeat. So I go meet with General Odinero, who was in charge of Iraq at that time, and I said, how do you do this? If we could get our teams to play like your troops act every week, we'd win all the games. This is unbelievable. And he made the greatest point. He said, we have a common purpose. And he said, if you don't have a common purpose with your team, you can't win. And I said, explain what that means to me. And he said, all of our guys are over here because they're important to helping keep America safe. And they feel really, really strong about that. So I went back to our team and our coaches because for about 30 years, I had never even thought about common purpose. And then it made sense to me that common purpose, we want the guys to graduate. We want the guys to act right. We want them to have fun. We want them to grow up and get more prepared for life when they get out. And we want them to win all the games. So our philosophy changed because that's our common purpose. And all of us have a pretty common purpose in this room. That's one of the cool things about what we do. It's not hard to figure out what we all want. So that was really important as we got it. And then when I got to Texas, Coach Roll was like an older brother to me. He always talks about one heartbeat. And I said, Coach, what does that really mean? He said, that means we're all the same. We all have the same beliefs. We all have the same work ethic. And that's what we mean. And then I said, so what do I have to do at Texas to win games? Because you've lost a lot of games in the past here, and nobody wonders why, because it's such a great place. And he said, Coach, your job is like in this room, every year that you take over, you got a box of BBs, and you've dropped the box, and the BBs are scattered all over the room. He said, your job is to get the BBs back in the box. Because you're really powerful as one, but when you're scattered, you got no chance. And he said, when you think about it, every year your team gets rescattered because you got different leaders, you got different people. So you got to get them back in the box. And they just don't get back in that box because they all have opinions and they all have attitudes. And even if you win, their attitudes change. Even if you lose all the games, they get deeper in depression, their attitudes change. So you got to get them back in the box. That's really important. So I also asked General Odinero, do you recruit leaders or do you teach leadership? He said, we teach it. We teach it. You can't recruit it. Most of them don't know what it means. And he said, they want to lead, but what does that mean? Yell at somebody, go grab somebody? You got to teach it. He said, that's why we have academies. And he said, your best leader may be the worst kid on your team. And he may be leading all your guys away from what you want, and you don't even know it. So, and we've all got that guy. We've all got that guy. And then if he gets 1 and then 3 and then 5, you got a problem. Because you're no longer running your team. He is. And he's doing it from the dressing room. And I was told one time, if you got no leadership, you got a bad team. If you got coach leadership-driven team, you got an average team. The only way you can have a great team if it's player-driven leadership. And that's been so true in my life. Those players have to step up. We're not around them all the time. And that's important. And then the last one I'll tell you here before we flip it, Coach Roll said one time, Coach, you need to get players with it. I said, Coach, what does it mean? I said, it sounds good, but what does it mean? He said, well, I had a young high school coach come up to me one time. He just started coaching. He said, Coach, I want to be like you. What does it take to be like you, Coach? And he said, well, you got to have it. He said, if you got it, you'll make it. If you don't have it, you won't make it. And if you don't know what it is, you got no chance to make it. I kind of did what you all did. He looked at me and I said, oh, I should. He walked off. Coach Roll said, hell, he don't have it. How you make decisions? You make decisions based on gathering all the information. So with our staff, I love our staff. I trust our staff, or I wouldn't have paid them to come. So I'm going to ask them every opinion on everything. I'm going to tell them don't give an opinion unless you've thought about it, unless you've researched it. But I want to know what they think. And even if Lonnie tells me something and I disagree with it, when we get through, I know what Lonnie was thinking. So ask, research, Back away from it. You don't have to give a quick answer to make it look like you know what you're doing. I always sleep on it. And then I usually had 6 or 7 people in our business that I really trust that are very successful. I'd call them, ask them. My brother Watson, I call him all the time, say, hey, I got this problem. What would you do if you had this problem? Hey, Coach Roll, this ever happened to you? Hey, Coach Paterno, what'd you do in this situation? Coach Bowden, here's what I got. Here's what the coaches think. Help me with what you think. And then you get enough information that you bring it back and you can make a decision. And then bigger than that, if the decision you make going forward doesn't work, don't second guess yourself. Because at the time you made the decision, with the information you had available, it was the best decision. Maybe you all didn't move forward and make it work. Because even if it's an average decision, and you get a lot of ordinary people pulling in the same way, it'll work. It'll work, but everybody's got to believe it. So regardless of what you decide, when you lead your staff meeting, everybody's on the same page. Give up your individualism and don't say, well, I don't like this. It doesn't matter. I've already asked you. And I decided, I'm the boss. I decided I didn't like what you wanted. So make it work. And make it work. It's just like some media guy. They'd tell me the coach would go for 4th and 1, not make it, and they'd say, what do you think? I said, I think he probably should have run a different play. Or maybe the guy shouldn't have fumbled. Or, what do you want? He didn't make it. Well, would you do it again? I said, not if I knew I wasn't going to make it. Dumbass. Come on, man. Don't ask the obvious here. All right. How do we win? We set goals, we expect to win, and you got to have great body language. You got to have great confidence, because every player on your team, every fan, everybody's watching you to see if you got body language, if you're confident. And the moment you do this, your players do this, your coaches do this, and the game's over. When we were winning, I was all over them. When we were losing, I was the biggest cheerleader in the world. Texas fans used to get so mad at me, they'd say, hey, we're getting our ass kicked. He's clapping on the sideline. I'm trying to pick him up. Game's not over. Come on. Got to go back and work. We're down 35 to 14 at halftime to Oklahoma State in Austin. I'm walking off field thinking, I'm probably fired, but I got another half. And when I was at Oklahoma, and this is an important story for all of us. When I was at Oklahoma, I had Troy Aikman as a freshman quarterback. Our first and second quarterbacks were out. Troy was redshirted. I put him in the game. We're playing Kansas. We're number 1 in the country. I'm working for Coach Switzer, offensive coordinator. Kansas is awful. Mike Goffrey was the head coach. They're awful. It's raining. Nobody's there. Troy said, oh, Coach, boy, I hope I don't throw an interception and lose the game. I was cocky. I said, we can't lose this game. You just be you. So at halftime, we go in, and we're behind 10-7. And we are playing awful. Awful. Nobody got any interest. So what I said is, hey, you guys stink. You're playing awful. And you got a freshman quarterback in here, you're going to get beat. I'm going to tell you, you got Kansas out there busting their ass, you're going to get beat in this ball game. You better pick it up. I'm sick of this. I threw a chair and walked out. We got beat 33-14. We're on the plane going home. Here's a Hall of Famer sitting next to me, and I said, Coach, I'm sorry. How can we lose to Kansas? He said, that's all right, Coach. He said, you lose your first-team quarterback and you lose your second-team quarterback, you're probably going to get beat. He said, but let me help you with something. Those players love you on offense, and they really, really respect you, and they're going to listen to everything you say. And I stood right there and heard you convince them they were going to lose the game. I felt about this high. Because he was right. Next week, we're playing Kansas State in Norman. We're ahead 7-3, and Kansas State's not any good. We're leaving the field, and he grabs me by the arm and says, we're in great shape, aren't we? Things are great. And the longer the game goes, the best team wins. So, Coach, you go sell them. So I'm leaving the field at Austin. 10 years later, 15 years later. And it hits me. We're in trouble, but I got to pick them up. I can't beat them down. So I get in the locker room and I tell the coaches, God, Oklahoma State's playing great. That's unbelievable. They've had so much luck, though, too. They can't play that good the second half. This is going to be so much fun. We're going to win the game. And this will be the biggest comeback in Texas football history. How much fun is this? Well, go convince your players we're going to win the game. I walk out, and they're all looking at me like he's lost it. He has absolutely lost his mind. So I walk out and tell the team, this is perfect. You're going to be the most popular players to ever play in Texas history because they can't play that good anymore. We've played hard, but we haven't played good. And I put 42-35 up on the board. I said, we're going to beat them 42-35. What a cool thing. This will be the biggest comeback in the history of Texas football, and I'm going to get to watch you guys do it. We beat them 56-35. And when I came in after the game, I told them, I'm so sorry that I underestimated you guys. You were a lot better than that. But the lesson that was taught, you beat them down. When they're down, they'll go further down because they trust you. Pick them up. Pick them up. Now, when they're walking around cocky, get all over them. Get all over them, and that's important. Next one here. How am I doing on time? I'm having too much fun with you guys, so I don't want to leave something out here. Vince Young. He's going in the Hall of Fame next year. He's in the Rose Bowl Hall of Fame. We'll go to the middle section there because this is real and could help you too. So Vince Young is a really good athlete coming out of Houston-Madison. He's not a great football player at quarterback because he's kind of an inconsistent thrower, so we redshirted him the first year. We come the second year, and he's improved. He's doing better. But all the media and all the fans, you got 102,000 people wanting him fired because he's playing quarterback, and he can't do that. Put him at receiver, put him at safety. He can't play quarterback. He can't do it. So we play Oklahoma. We lose 12-0. First time I hadn't scored there since the flood. I mean, it'd been forever. I don't remember the number, but it wasn't good. And then next week we're playing Missouri. He's at home. Missouri's got the best defense in the Big 12. At halftime, he's completed 9 passes. 5 to them, 4 to us. I benched him. I'd had it. He throws his helmet. I go over and grab him by the arm and said, hey, we benched Chance Mack at quarterback so you could play. You keep your mouth shut. You got 100,000 people watching you here and millions on TV. You get over there and be the best cheerleader this second half you've ever been, and you keep your mouth shut. That's only fair. And he did that. So the next morning, I bring him into my office, and I said, I want you to sit right here and keep your mouth shut. And I said, I've lost the quarterback I had. I don't know where he went. Young guy from Houston comes in. He starts playing great. And now all of a sudden, he's listening to his brother who thinks he's Peyton Manning. He's listening to media. He's listening to fans. You can't even complete a pass. You got no confidence. I've lost the guy. So here's our deal. I put all of his high school highlights on. I mean, he's look unbelievable. Even him covering a kickoff in a playoff game because they were running him back too much. Put him at safety on defense. And then I showed all the highlights he had in his first 3 years at Texas. And I said, look at this guy. This guy's the best quarterback in the world. The one I saw the last 2 weeks is whipped and beaten up and can't play because he's let outside influences get in his mind and determine who he is. And I said, so here's our deal. I'm going to start you again this week. We were playing in Lubbock against Texas Tech, which is a hard place for Texas to play. And they were about number 10 in the country. I think we were 8. And they just beat Nebraska 70-14, 70-10, something like that. So I said, I'm going to play you in this game, but if you don't play well, I'm going to bench you. And I'm going to go with Chance Mack because I've had it. I can't play a quarterback with no confidence. All week, he's awful in practice. He's bouncing balls. It's the same way he was against Missouri. So I don't know. And then we get to the game, and in pregame, he's out there, and it looks the same. He's not confident. He doesn't feel good. In that ball game, he completed 11 of 15 passes for 250 yards, and he rushed for 250 yards. We won the ball game 52-17. And after the game, he said, Coach, it just hit me that the only stat that matters as the quarterback at Texas is how many games you win. Because he was so into, I got to throw. I need people to see me. Just win, baby. Just win. He never lost another game. He never lost another game. So in our hands, in that meeting room, we have the ability to pick one up or the ability to bring him down. We've got to make sure that we give them that confidence, and we have to do that by giving them things that they can do. Shows I had somebody doing this for me for 30 years. That must be it. There was one more on there, but new secretary, maybe. She may be in trouble when I get home. The last part there is you've got to constantly sell who you are. You can't be arrogant, but now with these kids on social media, all the major universities know everything their player has on social media. And we tell them, if it's vulgar, if it's about race, if it's about sex, the compliance calls them immediately and gets them off. Because every one of your players that is going to be out interviewing for jobs with the NFL, the first place they go is their social media to see if they're vulgar on it, to see if they're selfish on it. So these guys need to understand every time they post, what they're doing is they're doing an interview. Because a lot of people never meet them, they'll only see them there. So we're all into selling, but you got to do it in a classy way and do it in a smart way. We're in a tough time with our sport. We got a lot of people questioning whether we should have our sport or not. We got a lot of things changing in our sport. In college football, there's a thing called a portal now, and you all probably have guys that are in it because if a player wants to, he can put his name in the portal, and everybody in the United States can recruit him legally, and he can leave. If he graduates and he wants to leave, he can leave his team. We've got players right now that are refusing to play in bowl games. That would have never happened when we were playing. Just wouldn't have. And it is happening, and it's real. There was a high school player in North Carolina that decided not to play this year because he didn't want to get hurt. So you're probably going to have that come up as you're going through. And then a lot of you are putting up with transfers from school to school. You don't even know who your team's going to be because everybody's looking for something else. So I talked to a player the other day that was transferring from a prominent school that went to a bowl game. I said, why are you leaving? He's a graduate transfer as an offensive lineman. He said, my offensive line coach made me mad. I'm not putting up with that. So I'm leaving. So that's the world we live in now. And we can say that they're not being raised like we were. We can say that they're being selfish. It's real. It's what's out there. It doesn't matter. So we got to handle it. And what you got to do is make your place so cool that you can get on them as long as you're treating them right and you're honest with them and you're correct. And they'll get it. If we have a player get in trouble, the first thing I do is bring him in and make him call his mom and dad and tell them what he did. Because they lie. If you're going to ask him to tell his parents he did something bad, it'll never get there. So bring him in and make him call mama and tell her. I stole something. I smoked dope. I hit a guy in the cafeteria. I cheated on a test. I've seen them sit there and cry now having to tell mama. They can tell you, they can tell me. But when they tell mama, and coming from him, it's real. Coming from you, she may get mad at you and say it's not true. When he says it, it's real. It's true. So I would do that without question. So I'm going to answer a few questions for you here in a minute, but if you go back and think, we talked about communication. Simple things, very hard to do. Do you have good communication with your staff? Or are they walking out bitching and moaning? I've always had a rule, don't bitch, transfer. I don't want to hear you bitching. I don't. And I'll tell the North Carolina players next week, you won 2 games last year. Don't come in here with suggestions. I don't want to hear them. And hell, I can do without all of you. I can win 2 games if every one of you quits. So get better. Look in the mirror. Don't be poor old Coach Fedora's not coaching. That staff's gone. You look in the mirror. It's easy to say, well, that coach didn't like me. Well, shit, you win 2 games I wouldn't like either. I mean, come on, man. Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. So, communication. You got to talk. And you got to listen. Then trust. You can't ever build up trust if you lie. And if you lie to one of them, you've lied to all of them. Because he's going to run and tell it. And even with lying, I learned this. It's not just what you say, it's what he hears. I've had guys come to me and say, Coach Galloway said, I said, that's not what he said. That's what you heard. So before I ever let one leave my office, I always say, Tom, tell me what you heard. And if I say, here's 4 great things you're doing, and one I'm concerned about that you need to get fixed before you play, then what he usually tells me is you chewed me out over this one thing. And I learned that because I used to get on them like that, and then their parents would call me and say, what'd you chew him out for today? I said, I didn't chew him out. Because they hold you in such high esteem, you got to be really, really careful what you tell them because they're going to listen. And that's what I learned about the Hall of Fame deal. They're going to listen. So think about what you're going to tell them because it's important to them. And then respect. If you always do what you know is the right thing to do, and you give it your best every day for everything you've got, you'll get respect. You'll get respect. When I got to Texas, I thought, who's playing hard every week? And it was Nebraska. They were playing hard every week. And then I sat there for the last 5 years and I watched, and so many teams don't try. And they lose. And they lose because they didn't try at all. They loafed. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't. All the things we'd worked on all week didn't matter because they weren't ready to play. They didn't create an edge. So, got to get respect. We had Al Groh was the head coach at Virginia. He wasn't going to a bowl game. He came to watch us play. It's right after we lost the Texas Tech game by 3 points. And we'd beaten number 1 Oklahoma. We were in a tiebreaker with them. The Big 12 took the tiebreaker away from us. We didn't get to play for the conference championship game, which probably cost Colt McCoy the national championship because we'd already beaten Missouri 56-24 or something. Then we didn't get to play in the national championship game. And we would have done both if we hadn't gotten beat with 3 seconds left. So Al Groh comes and watches our practice, and we're getting ready for a really good Ohio State team in the Fiesta Bowl, and we're pouting, and we're pissed, and we're not excited about the game. So he watches practice, and he says, I'm really impressed with your recruiting because all your ends look alike, and all your backs look alike, and your offensive linemen. I can tell you're recruiting to a standard, and I can tell that. So good for you. He said, but I hate this bowl game for you. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you're about to get your ass kicked. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you got no interest. He said, all I've heard is Texas Tech and Oklahoma. All I've heard is that you're talking about you got screwed. Nobody's talking about Ohio State. Let me tell you now, they're talking about you. They're excited about this game. So he said, you better wake up and you better get a hold of your team because if not, you're going to get your ass kicked. Well, I ran, shoot out the coaches. I ran, got the team together, and I said, hey, Texas Tech died. Oklahoma died. That's in our past. We're going to beat Ohio State. Here's how we're going to beat them. We won it on 16 seconds left in the game. It was a great game. But if we're not careful, we talk about things that are unimportant in our past instead of creating the edge for the future. We're at Texas. We just beat Kansas 66-14. We're number 2 in the country. USC is number 1. We're going to play Colorado in the conference championship game. We've already beaten them badly early. So it's going to be us and USC for the national championship in the Rose Bowl if we just don't screw it up. So I played for Bill Parcells. Got 10 minutes. Thank you. I played for Bill Parcells at Florida State, and he's the head coach of the Cowboys. Coach Parcells calls me and says, "You're about to get your ass kicked." we're playing Texas A&M, and they're 4-8. And I said, Coach, I think we're doing pretty good. We just beat Kansas 66-14. And he said, that's why you're about to get your ass kicked. He said, you're like a bunch of fat rats, and you got poison. Yeah, thank you. You got poison cheese that's sitting around, and your guys are eating the cheese. You're eating the cheese because you feel too good about yourself, and you're about to get your ass kicked. Because A&M can't go to a bowl. The only way they save their season is to beat you. So you've got no interest in them, and their whole focus is you. And he was right. So I get little pieces of cheese, and I hang them from every locker. I put exactly what Coach Parcells said on every locker, and I told him. At halftime, we're down 29-24. Probably cost Vince Young the Heisman because it's the same day Reggie Bush had the great game against Fresno State. And we're at halftime. And the only thing I said at halftime is, Coach Parcells was right. We ate a bunch of poison cheese. Thank God we just ate enough to be a little sick. We didn't eat enough to die. And we're going to come back and win the second half. Well, we won 40-29, but about the time that you think you can't get beat is when you're in trouble. That's when you're in trouble. Because those kids and your assistant coaches feel everything that you say and do. And all of us have walked into stadiums a little flat, and then we get mad that the team's flat, and we get mad that the fans are flat. We're flat. Just weren't quite as excited. We didn't create an edge somewhere during the week. So we started doing a military game. How many people in here have somebody in their family that's either been in the military or touches the military? Raise your hand. Most. That's our lives. Thank God for those people that serve. So what we do is we have a game in the military where everybody on the team writes a letter or a note, text to the person in the military who's serving, and they dedicate the game to them that week. They dedicate their practice to them. They dedicate it to everything they're doing, going to class, eating. And then after the game, they call this person and tell them, I love you and I thank you for your service. And I played for you. I yelled for you. I cheered for you tonight. Never lost one of those. And then we started doing a game. How many people in here have somebody that they know that's been really sick with cancer? Everybody, all of us. So we have a cancer game. And we dedicate it to a person who is either gone from cancer or who has cancer. And each of the cancers have a different color, and we put the color of the cancer of the person that they have on the back of their helmet. Never lost one of those games. So you got to create an edge. It's really, really important to create an edge. And the only way you get them to play hard in the games all the time is get them to play hard in practice. I had a receiver coach at Texas. It's really a good coach. And he had good players, and they were loafing. And I went in the film room with him after practice. And I sat down just with him, didn't want to embarrass him. And I said, your guys are loafing. He got all mad. And that's bullshit. They're not loafing. Coach Mack, I don't allow my guys to loaf. I said, well, let's turn the video on. Because it's not what you say, it's what I see. They were all loafing. And it was bad. And he was out there with them. He didn't even notice it. He didn't see it. And then afterwards, he said, I apologize. I got it. So make sure when you get home that you turn your video on, and all of this stuff you're coaching and teaching in all of these clinics, see if they're doing it. See if they're doing it. And if they're not, you need to pick it up. Because we are what we see, not what we hear. So make sure that you do that. And are your guys playing hard every play? If they're not, you're doing an injustice for them because you're allowing them to take a lazy step. You're allowing them not to do something full speed every minute of every day, and that's something that'll hurt them later in their life. And the last thing I'm going to say, and I'll answer questions if anybody's got any. I don't know how. The The last thing I'll say is that it's not the best team that always wins the game. It's the team that plays the best on that day. So don't worry about the other team. You worry about your team. And you may not be as good as that other team because you don't have as good of players or maybe as much confidence. But if that team walks around a little bit and you play your game, we see upsets all the time. And we always are amazed that, I can't believe they beat them. Well, they didn't beat them. They beat themselves because they weren't ready to play or they had too many turnovers. I was writing notes on the plane on the way down this morning for our staff when we get ready to start spring practice March 3rd. And the first thing I said, when you get away from coaching and you look at it, the number one thing that matters is turnovers. So every day, do we teach forcing turnovers on defense? And do we celebrate? It was so strong, all these people started doing these stupid things to celebrate some turnover. But do we talk about that as much as we talk about all the other stuff we do? How many fumbles did you have last year? And how many interceptions did you have? Were the interceptions on third down because the quarterback got hit or because they weren't on first down? That changes your game. When we've won all of the games, we've had 20-plus turnovers and very few because the kids should never fumble the ball if we're teaching them right. It is really hard to fumble if you take care of the ball. It's really easy to knock it loose when it's out here. And the second thing is we lost 2 games in 16 years at Texas when we outrushed the other team. And we usually counted their rushing as screens and draws because of all the wide open stuff. But if you rush the ball more than they do, it means you're stopping the run. It means you're putting them in second down and third down and long. And that's where you get your turnovers. That's where you get your turnovers. And we had a few other little things that we did is we never wanted to substitute from the 20 in or the goal line out to the 20. 2020s, you win ball games with goal line and red zone. You're going to substitute, guys, substitute in the middle. Let your best players get a break there. Never substitute 5 minutes before the half because they get a rest. Never substitute 5 minutes after the half because they should be rested after halftime. And then try to figure out with playing time, when your backup guy is as good as your tired starter, give him 10 plays. And maybe he can be as good as a tired starter with 10 plays. He can't play 25. He can't play 30. So figure out, because the more guys you play, the less tired you are, the fewer injuries you have, better morale you got. Because morale is from the bottom up. Find something they can do. Let them play. And that's really, really important. Have we got any questions I could answer? Any questions from anybody? Guys, I appreciate you coming. I hope you got something out of this. What I want for you is to do what I'm trying to do. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the journey. Don't always be looking at the next job because it's got problems too. You know, I mean, that's just fact. None of them are perfect. But what did you do today to help some young guy on your team? Who did you mentor? Who did you pick up? And that's really what we're in this stuff for. I started that 42 years ago, and I got away from it. I got away because they pay you so much, and you win so many games, and you get about the wins instead of who you are. And I came back because I want to do this like you're supposed to do it. I want to do it the right way for the kids and for the assistant coaches and enjoy the game of football, not fight every minute of every day over all the problems we got. Everybody else got problems too. You know, if you took all your problems and wrote them on a piece of paper and stuck them up on a board, and everybody else up in here put all their problems up on a board, you'd probably run and fight to get yours back. So don't think it's just you. Let's take those crises and turn them into positives. Have a great week. Have a great spring. We've got our clinic on Urban Myers coming in to speak. We've got our clinic on April 5th. and April 6th. We're going to have our coordinators speak. We'll have breakout sessions with all of our coaches. Then the next morning, we'll have a special teams meeting, and we'll have a strength lecture, and then we'll go practice. So I'd love to have any of you that want to come. If you get to Chapel Hill, let us know. We're changing a lot, and I can't wait to take something that's struggling and fix it. Everybody says, well, you got a challenge. You know what? You got an opportunity. That's what you got. So you that are winning, you can't even say, I used to say we got to maintain this thing. You can't. What you got to do is get better. You got to keep getting better. When you win all the games, that's hard to do. That's why we don't see many people repeat. But you that are struggling, what a great opportunity. You got to go fix it. Go fix it. I can't wait to fix it. Because we won 10 plus games, 10 straight years, and you start thinking, we got this thing. Nobody's got this thing. This thing's all bigger than us. We got to keep working every minute of every day. Have a great clinic, have a great safe trip home, and have a good spring.